we have a provider called Level Justice that does sessions for students around empathy in the law and around Indigenous peoples in the law. And so they use more of the Ontario or Anishinaabe principles of the 7 grandfather teachings, for example. Could we connect with that teacher and that community and the Indigenous leads in the school and find out, what are the principles you're living by, and how should we incorporate that into our session? And so then the school was, yes, like, let's talk. And so there was that cultural exchange, which is another one of the big principles of the program, so that our providers could learn about things that they're talking about and their principles for living well. And then in turn, the Yukon students really appreciated hearing what other First Nations communities, the principles they live by. So
Right.
super powerful because there's such alignment, and just knowing that idea of having more and more Indigenous role models in your life, right? If you see it, you can be it.
As big a country as Canada is, often the forgotten part of Canada is the North. Of all the traveling I've done across this country, I've been to every province many times, never been to Northern Canada, to the Yukon, Northwest Territories, the Nunavut regions. I've never been there, never been to those territories. And I'm always curious about the work and the life that is. It is the North. It's fascinating when you read and you see things about it. But today I'm so privileged to be able to talk with Brenda Sherry, a longtime colleague and friend who is very involved in work through her association with Connected North. And I love this conversation, and it really enlightened me in terms of the educational context that's happening there as well. So, and Brenda is a lifetime educator. She's a former principal and school leader in Ontario. And her and I have had the opportunity to work together actually on a number of projects. We worked with Cheryl Nespon Beach through Powerful Learning Practice a number of years ago as coaches, and have stayed connected in another variety of capacities. And most recently, we worked together at Advanced Learning Partnerships, which this podcast is brought to you by and sponsored by. And I've been privileged to work with Brenda. We have some projects coming up that I'm going to continue to work with Brenda, and just so enjoy her company and her insights on all things happening in the North. So enjoy my conversation with Brenda Sherry. Brenda, of all the people that I know that are technically retired, you're doing about the worst job of it. Like, you're not like you are
You
not good at retirement, are you?
I'm not. I'm calling it rewirement, Dean, but I think that's absolutely correct. And there's ups and
Well, you
downs
and
to
I,
that.
well, yeah, and you and I have known each other for quite a while. I was trying to go back. I guess I don't know if it's our PLP days that we kind of connected, or might have even been before that. I don't remember
I
exactly where.
feel like, you know what? I feel like we met officially face to face at a York University event, and it was Able or something like that. And Cheryl was
Right,
there, Cheryl Nussbaum Beach.
right.
And so then I met you and Cheryl kind of at the same time. And that's how I got involved with PLP, Powerful Learning Practice, too. Yeah. That's
Right,
going back a
right.
while, a
It
long while.
is. And then, again, since then, you and I have reunited working together at ALP, and that's just been a real joy for me. But I
Mm.
know this other side gig that I want to talk to you about is actually by things I've heard from you, it takes up a lot of your time, so
Yes.
it's a big
It's
deal.
not yeah, it's
So
my main gig. Yeah.
yeah, so like just and I've this is my goal, is to try to get representation from all across Canada. And while you don't live in the North. That's where you've been doing so much of this work. So tell just what is Connected North?
So, Connected North is a live, interactive, virtual learning experience for remote and Indigenous communities through schools in those locations. It is um, it originated with Cisco because Cisco really understood the unique challenges in remote areas around telecommunications, right? So they started to get involved first to provide the bandwidth and the technology to the remote communities, and then very quickly realized that it would be great to have support from a not for profit like Taking It Global. So that's the organization that I'm involved with, um, to actually get educators connected and to really organize the program in that way. And so um, that's when it started, I believe around 2016. And so we have grown now to having 140 schools across the country involved in having those programs. And the kinds of things that students do virtually. So my role, and I met Jennifer Corriero and Michael Furtick in my work as Peter Skillen. Actually, you know Peter. He introduced me to them, and they are the co-founders of Taking It Global. And I got involved as a teacher when I was in the classroom with some of their global projects. So I've always respected their work. They are all about empowering youth across the world. So they were the perfect people to take this on and really expand Connected North the way they have. So I have that connection to those two as really powerful leaders and young people. So that's awesome. So each community has a school lead like myself who supports the teacher and the school, and we are at every session, one of us. So a teacher can reach out and talk about what the gaps are in their classroom program and what kinds of things they'd like to see happen in their class, and someone like me works with them, does all the background connecting to make that happen. So such a gift. Like I think of myself as as a classroom teacher, it would be so amazing to have that partner to think of some of these authentic experiences. So that's my role, and that's what Connected North is. Um, and so I mentioned 140 schools all across the north. This last year, we've delivered over 5,000, like pretty close to 6,000 sessions with students, which are about an hour long usually. Um, Almost 2,000 content providers, so pretty huge scale, um, which is very exciting. Um, and so you might wonder what students do in those virtual sessions, right? So the bulk of our providing is virtual field trips. So and again live. So they might go to a science center, they might go to a museum, they might visit an art gallery, and um, not just for a like a Zoom session or tour, but usually there's an interactive component to the actual learning experience. So we provide all the materials if the students are drawing along with an artist from Vancouver Art Gallery, for example, or they have a kit where they're making slime when they're studying matter in grade 3. All that is included. So each session is as interactive as possible. That's one difference I think from our program, which is awesome. They all might, and we might have authors as well. We might have musicians coming in. I have ukulele lessons going on. We might have boxing. We have weekly yoga. All kinds of things that teachers can engage in. So that's one element, that virtual field trip. Then the other thing is we might have career fairs so that students from the north can get connected to either actual people in different careers, or they might participate in panels to hear about what post-secondary is like. What's it like to leave your very small community in the north and go to school somewhere else? And talk about a resource that all of your listeners can access around that later. Um, we have sessions that build teacher capacity, trauma informed practice, learning disabilities, um, using IEPs, project based learning, all of those kinds of things. So, quite a range of what students and teachers might be engaged in day to day.
Well, that's awesome. And I mean, I know just even scrolling through the website and watching some videos, you can see kind of get a sense of that sort of cool stuff they do. When you think about all of the sessions that you've been involved in, is there any kind of memorable ones that stand out saying, "Oh, that was kind of a special one that you'll always kind of keep close?"
Oh my gosh, yes. I will be hard to shortlist them actually, but I'll try. So we have lots of artists who come in and indigenous artists. Many of the beading sessions are pretty amazing because the kits go out to students. Like, for example, just this last while, we've been doing tufting with caribou fur. So our indigenous artist, she dyed the caribou fur, cut it all up, got sent everything the kids would need. Um, and they're making keychains and they're learning how to tuft with that, which is very challenging. And I often get to learn alongside, so that's pretty cool. And I have definitely, I'm a very beginner in tufting. Beading is pretty cool. Um, that's something that really, when I see students, many of them in the small communities already have had some beading experience, of course, in their communities. So having an artist come in and show them something new and have the kit provided for them is really nice. um, we have we have Priscilla, who's an Inuit, third generation Inuit carver, has done many sessions in the last year or two around soapstone carving. So that has been a real highlight. Just how much fun the students have doing that and seeing her work and hearing her story. And that's built in with any of our Indigenous role models, the story, their journey, um, their cultural background is shared, and so that's really inspiring to students from across the country. And it's very cool when people happen to know each other. That happens all the time. And
Right.
that's really fun. And then in terms of field trips, there's a few that stand out. I'll mention three. So the first year I started, we were able to go to London and tour the Globe Theatre in London, England. So that was amazing for some secondary students that were studying drama. Um, a tour of Anne Frank's museum in Holland was amazing, in Amsterdam. And recently, the first group I had in high school chose to partner with Ray at St. Louis University and have a demonstration of an autopsy in a secondary biology class. So that was
Wow.
amazing. And we do sections where the students get the squid sent to them and they dissect it along with the scientists.
Wow.
Like, you know, it's hard for me to pick just a few.
Yeah.
Pretty
No,
amazing.
yeah, and I mean, I love the fact that because again, we did a lot of virtual field trips when I was working with Discovery, but we didn't do anything interactive. It was all kind of just you got to see it, and sometimes it was sometimes it was live, sometimes it was live. But I think you got that added dimension of that there's actually something kids are doing. So I think that's a fantastic element. When I think about
Sorry.
the notion of connected north and I think the goal obviously is to make their remoteness less remote, right? I'm wondering about the indigenous component in that you know most of these communities I'm assuming are largely indigenous, and then but you're also connecting them in many cases to other indigenous people
Yes.
in, for lack of a better word, the South, the sort of the
Yes.
whatever that main part of Canada that most of the population lives in. So talk a little bit about the intention around. I mean, because some people might say, well, they're indigenous. Why are they connecting with other indigenous people? That like what's sort of the intent behind behind that aspect of the program?
So yes, that that piece around, I guess one of the program principles around relationship building are really powerful. So there is the fact that we customize content to each unique school or community, and relationship building, of course, is a really huge part of that. Um, I'm not Indigenous myself. I have a settler background, but my auntie in Nova Scotia is Mi'kmaq First Nation. So, and my cousins, because of that, are Indigenous. So, you know, I think what I always notice as I meet people in various communities is that openness and interest in learning about what other people are doing, and breaking down those barriers and learning from each other. So, what I notice, for example, we have a provider called Level Justice that does sessions for students around empathy in the law and around Indigenous peoples in the law. And so they use more of the Ontario or Anishinaabe principles of the seven grandfather teachings, for example. And when that organization saw that, when I connected with them and said, hey, I have a school from the Yukon that is interested in this session, they immediately said, oh, could we connect with that teacher and that community and the Indigenous leads in the school and find out, what are the principles you're living by, and how should we incorporate that into our session? And so then the school was, yes, like, let's talk. And so there was that cultural exchange, which is another one of the big principles of the program, so that our providers could learn about things that they're talking about and their principles for living well. And then in turn, the Yukon students really appreciated hearing what other First Nations communities, the principles they live by. So
Right.
super powerful because there's such alignment, and just knowing that idea of having more and more Indigenous role models in your life, right? If you see it, you can be it. It's very similar to our mandates and our interest, Dean, in girls in STEAM and STEM, right?
Right.
we're
Yeah.
we're very aware that many of our girls don't know any women in STEM, and so, we say, if you see it, you can be it. And that's part
Right.
of, meeting a lawyer.
Well,
We do mock trials. And so we had a judge
right.
that was an Indigenous judge doing the mock trial with the students. So meeting a lawyer, and he happened to be from Whitehorse, which was super cool for my
Right.
students. But yeah.
Well, and I mean the idea that not only being remote itself, right, is just challenging because you think, well, this is the only world that and there's another world out there, but you think, well, as an Indigenous person, like, how can I even continue to sort of maintain my culture living, in another part of but to see them do that, to see other people sort of maintaining their culture, celebrating it, and yet, pursuing whatever other passions they might have, I think is got to be very powerful. And then, I mean, you said you've been that this started in 2016, and I don't know if you would have enough trajectory to know this, but like, one of the things I always think about is like the long-term impact of this, right? So it's one thing to put on, a virtual field trip or whatever we do, and
Hmm.
see kids excited about it at the moment. But we know when we see kids, a year, 2 years later, either still talking about it, or maybe they've taken up a new hobby or studied something because of that. Like, that's, to me, it's like, yes, then I know that I'm really having impact. So I don't know if you have any stories about kids or teachers who, maybe a year or two or three or four later, have still sort of were impacted by the work that Connected North has done.
Um, so I don't have a story in particular with students that I've been working with, but I can tell you that um, the ecosystem with which Connected North is sitting in taking it global, for example, um, there are other things that students in Connected North are exposed to that have led to exactly what you're talking about. So, for example, there are grants that we provide, micro grants to students. So, and often the Connected North students are really, first tapped for some of these things because they're in our network already, right? So, there was a previous grant called Rising Youth, and that's where students would be given a grant of up to, I believe it was $2,500, if they had a community action project that they would like to do in their community. So anything from COVID health packs to elder teas that they were sponsoring to sports events in the local gym. Lots of very culturally relevant experiences could be funded by that grant. And what I'm so impressed with around the way Taking It Global does things is there's really support for those youth. So, for example, if I get a grant like that, and there's also a leadership fund that we have, the Samuel Leadership Fund. Um, if I get a grant like that, I'm connected to people at Taking It Global, many of whom are Indigenous, and they kind of coach me, right? They help me do a budget. They help me provide, create my plan. They help celebrate the end of the project and share things out in social media. So it's a really great leadership experience and resume, or whatever you want to call it, like something that students could use moving forward in their studies or in their work or their entrepreneurship or their social action. And we have many graduates of those kinds of things. So they hear about us through their schoolwork in Connected North, then
Right.
they apply for something like that if they wish. And then we end up having them back as providers in Connected North, or they take other roles. So that's where it's cool to see those
Nice.
students go
Yeah.
on and and you know um, I'll share a few things maybe towards the end, where listeners can actually, many of those stories are online, free to anyone to go and use them as a resource. So we could talk about that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've, while you do a lot of this virtually, you do spend some time in the Yukon itself, and I know you've been up many, many times. I've never been. I've traveled to every province in Canada, but I've never been to any of the territories. And always curious. I think whenever you travel, my belief is that people are way more similar than they are different, which I think that's probably I think that's true. But we're always curious. So when you go there, like what do you notice and feel and observe, whether it's among the students or the teachers or just, I mean, the places in general, that you say like here's what makes the North special and different from other parts of Canada.
Well, yes, there's the physical beauty of it. So I was fortunate my first year to visit Nunavut, to two locations, Iqaluit and Whale Cove, and that was just like amazing, beautiful, remote, um, the water, uh, just just the surprises of seeing the hunting tents out on the land, and just beautiful. In the Yukon, the mountains surround you, so that has always been a favorite place to me for me to be in the mountains. Um, the sun, the daylight, like just so many things. The northern lights, which I didn't get to see the last time I was there, but I did see them in Nunavut. So the physical beauty is outstanding. If you liked the outdoors, you got to get to the Yukon, I think, because it's just so beautiful. The people are amazing, and I am so amazed. I've been able to visit 4 times, and when you people will ask you where you're from, and you share, and so many people have come from the south or other parts of Canada, and they come for a piece of time in the Yukon, and they just fall in love with it, and they stay. So the people are amazing. I have so much learning to do around the many First Nations that are in the Yukon, which is a self-governing territory, which is a little different than some other places in Canada. So I am just learning so much. I believe 12 different languages in the Yukon alone, Indigenous languages, and I think 14 First Nations. So it's a lot to learn, and people are so open and really welcoming and to share about their community and their nation. So often I'm saying thank you and hello in different languages with students in the sessions, and you know um, got great big hugs from the grade ones when I was there in Whitehorse last time, which is so great. That's my background, primary teaching. So when
Hmm.
I visited Gray Mountain Primary School, for example, there was a crocheted campfire in the middle of the room. That's how they start their day every day, and giving gratitude to the First Nation, to the land, celebrating the fact that we're all connected. So just those First Peoples principles, just, the people living it. So I'm just learning all the time, which is, I guess, why I'm doing this work. It's just so
Yeah, you,
rewarding.
you you don't
Hmm.
people anybody that goes and visits usually just has so many good things to say about it, and I think maybe surprising. And I think we often, when you think about remote places, we kind of dismiss them as being they're not quite as advanced or whatever. But I mean, they all have their, I think they embrace where they live, and have created a beautiful place for their community. And lots of us white folks are up there too. Like, I know, like you said, people have come from the south and just said, no, this is how I want to live my life. And it's seems like a different pace. It seems like a different,
Hmm.
just a little different vibe, if you will, and maybe one that I know that we all could learn a lot from, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Two more things about this, and then we'll put a little bow on it. I did notice there was something when I looked on the website. There was something about Cisco's technology, that like their streaming or their video conferencing, that is sort of a step above what you and I would use during Zoom. So is that a really a big part of this? The fact that they've got this high quality video conferencing.
Right. They have in the Yukon we actually do use Zoom because the Yukon Department of Education had a different investment in technology, and the infrastructure was such that it was already really good, and the technology, like the laptops, etc., are in schools already. So we have one of these, they're called Room 55s, and it's a stand we have one in the Yukon at Carcross. It's a standing big unit with speakers integrated. And so, yes, it is pretty exceptional around, especially around sound, because you know how you need the like the snowball mics when you're in a classroom so that you can
Right,
pick up the sound like omnidirectional. So that's already built in, and some of them even have, like, the camera will follow you if you're talking and that
right,
kind of thing. It's just pretty
right.
amazing. So we have those in a lot of our districts outside of the Yukon, and then even the school leagues will have a smaller desk version of that. So the connectivity is amazing. And in some places, we get support from the government, for example, in Nunavut, to help with that, help with bandwidth. So that's they're partners with that to make sure that the technology works as best as it can. I mean, weather gets in the way, for
Right.
sure, very occasionally for me, and in some cases in Northern Ontario and Nunavut it happens too. So can I share a couple of the things,
Yeah, I was just gonna
though?
say, can you just share a few things? I know you wanted to share some stuff that people could
I
might
do.
want to be check out later.
So if folks are interested in some resources that you could use even if you're not in the Connected North network, I would suggest you check out firesidechats.ca. It is a collection of Indigenous role models, so, many who are connected to our Connected North program as providers, but others that are in the network through taking it global. So what you will see there is an interview with these folks, where they tell their story about their journey in their career journey specifically, in a wide variety of careers. And also in that website, you'll see lesson plans that have been developed. So any teacher can go on there and use some of those stories and the lesson plans in their classroom. So I think
Awesome.
that's pretty awesome. There is futurepathwaysnavigator.org is a site that's mostly directed to students in remote communities who are leaving their community in order to go to some post-secondary to education. So just self-care, what's it like to leave, how do you set goals, what if you're homesick, some cooking ideas, if you're out on your
Hmm.
own. So excuse me, while I see that, while it's focused on our northern students, I think a lot of students are in the same boat and
Sure.
could use that guidance, right? And then another program that I'm involved with, which is amazing, there's sort of two sister programs. So there's create2learn.ca, which has video tutorials from Indigenous artists and entrepreneurs all about the things that they do. They're creatives, right? So they have video tutorials on game design, visual arts, health and well-being, using drones, all kinds of things like that. There are lesson plans for teachers there, so anybody can access those. That's create2learn.ca. And then,
Nice.
as you know, I'm involved with code2learn.ca. And that's amazing too. And any of our, we have a focus on Indigenous artists there. Indigenous ways of knowing mathematics is one of the projects there. So any educators can connect with me, and get some of those resources, even if they're not in the Connected North network. So I wanted to make sure that people knew about those.
Oh, that's
Very
fantastic.
rich.
I mean, I know that as far as resources goes, everyone's looking for good quality Indigenous related content, and sometimes that's not easy to find.
Right.
Sometimes people are nervous about what they find, and so great to have a few resources
Yes.
that they can use and start embedding this into their work. So that's fantastic. Thank you for that. Well, as I just before I let you go, I was just going to ask. I know again, as somebody who is done a poor job of retiring, because in retirement you're supposed to be able to, find all these books that you're reading and enjoy movies and shows and whatnot. Have you been able to do that? Is there a book or a TV binge series or a podcast or something that you're
Yeah.
consuming, I guess, in that you're enjoying that you might recommend to others?
Okay, I have to share, and I'm a little late to the party on this one, but Ted Lasso, I've been watching it, so I'm into the next season now, the one I have to wait for now. But you know why I love Ted Lasso is because I think as coaches, and you might relate to this, coaches of teachers, we work with teachers, we work with students, we work in virtual coaching. I'm kind of Ted Lasso around all that because you know how Ted. Have you seen that series?
Yeah, 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 yeah. We're
Okay.
we're actually we finished season one way back when, and we're actually just in the middle of season two. So we're taking it again, going
Okay,
at it
so
again.
so how many times are we like Ted Lasso? We don't know the ins and outs of everything that we're bringing to students, but it's more
Right,
important that we're co-learners, that we learn
right.
alongside, that we build a team, that we relate. We're about relationships. Yeah. So I resonate with Ted Lasso, so I'm enjoying that. And I watched The Light We Carry last night on Netflix, which is Michelle Obama finished her tour, and Oprah interviewed her, and that's a book on my list. I have to get reading that one. So it was really an outstanding hour for sure. Yeah. So those two come to mind.
Sure. Good. Appreciate those. Are good recommendations. Now, I have to confess, never been to Guelph. Anytime I've seen like little, vignettes or references, like it comes across as quite a nice little
Oh
city
yeah.
slash town, whatever. So if I'm coming to Guelph, I've never been before. What place would you recommend or thing I go to do there that maybe it wouldn't be the first thing that comes up on Google. Maybe it would, but just something you think, yeah, if you come to Guelph, this is a place to go or a thing to see, something to do.
Um. Well, I would. If you're interested, especially in Indigenous art, I would go to the Guelph Art Gallery, which is it's right at the University of Guelph. because they have a collection of Indigenous art and a lot of Inuit art as well, which is spectacular. So I would check that out. And then we have a lot of pretty good restaurants. So any you could just restaurants. Majida would be one I would recommend to you, and a lot of farm to table, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you'd find that, and also craft breweries are something we do. So like this, we have the Speed River, the Aramasa River, and the Grand River. So kind of unique in the rivers that meet up in Guelph. That would be cool to be down there and having a craft brew and sitting by the river. And then there's one thing I have not done in my years here. There apparently there were gallows and stuff because Guelph is a very old city. So there are gallows downtown, and you can kind of do a walking tour around there to find out where those little secret spots were from way back. So I'd like to do that, but haven't done it yet. So when you
Well,
come
that
to
sounds like a
Toronto,
full
you
day. The
have to
time I
yeah, you have to come out to Guelph, and I will take you
Yeah,
around
the
to those
time I
places.
okay, well, we
Yep.
need to do that. Yeah, the time
Yeah.
I finish up the art gallery and have uh my
Lunch.
craft beer and then do the gallo tour, time for dinner. It's a
Yeah.
great day.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda, for sharing this. This is just enlightening, and again, I knew a little bit about the work you do, but now I know a lot more, and really proud of the work that you do, and excited. And thank you for sharing those resources as well.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to share with people. I hope they take advantage of them. Thanks.
All right, we'll talk soon.